What if one completely ordinary day, without any warning, without an explosion, without a sound, the sky above Earth suddenly stopped being blue and transformed into a flawless mirror stretching endlessly in every direction, not cracked, not glowing, not moving, but perfectly smooth and reflective, as if the planet itself had been folded upward and placed above our heads? And at first, most people would not even realize what had happened, because life would continue normally for a few minutes. Traffic would flow, conversations would continue, and the world would feel unchanged, until someone looked up and noticed that the clouds were no longer drifting freely, but staring back at themselves, reflected with impossible precision, creating a quiet confusion that spread slowly as more people stepped outside and realized the sky was no longer empty, but filled with familiar shapes. Cities, forests, oceans, and mountains appearing upside down yet perfectly aligned, making it feel as though Earth now existed twice at the same time, once beneath our feet and once suspended silently above us. And panic would not come immediately, because the mirror sky would not move or threaten. It would simply exist, calm and unresponsive, forcing humanity to process the impossible with logic rather than fear, while sunlight reflected off this new surface and returned back toward the planet, subtly increasing brightness, stretching daylight longer than usual, softening the darkness of night, and causing cities to glow faintly even after sunset, as artificial lights bounced upward and returned again, creating an endless visual loop that made it difficult to tell where Earth ended and the reflection began. And pilots flying aircraft would be among the first to feel the effects, as depth perception failed, horizons doubled, and familiar visual cues disappeared, forcing aviation systems to rely entirely on instruments rather than sight. While astronauts observing from orbit would see something even stranger as the planet appeared wrapped inside a reflective shell, blurring the boundary between atmosphere and space, making it nearly impossible to tell where Earth ended and the universe began. And satellites would start receiving duplicated signals that bounced back unexpectedly, confusing navigation systems and forcing scientists to question whether the mirror sky was a physical object at all, or a new state of space-time that bent light without mass. And weather would begin to behave in unfamiliar ways. As storms mirrored storms, clouds reflected clouds, rain appeared to fall both downward and upward through reflection, and lightning flashed twice in perfect symmetry, creating visual patterns the human brain was never designed to interpret, leading to widespread disorientation as people struggled to judge distance, height, and scale, while animals reacted cautiously, birds hesitating midair as their reflections appeared above them, and humans experiencing headaches, vertigo, and a deep sense of unease, caused not by danger, but by the collapse of visual certainty. Because for all of human history, the sky has symbolized openness, escape, and infinity. Yet now it would feel like a ceiling, a quiet boundary pressing reality back onto itself, removing the illusion of endless space and replacing it with constant self-awareness. And psychologically, this would change humanity in ways far deeper than any physical damage, because every city light left burning at night, every scar carved into the land, every sign of pollution or beauty would be permanently visible above the world, forcing societies to confront their actions not through data or reports, but through reflection, inspiring artists to paint the impossible symmetry, architects to redesign cities around light and reflection, philosophers to question whether reality itself had folded inward, and children to accept the mirrored sky far more easily than adults, growing up in a world where looking up meant seeing their own planet watching them back. And as weeks turned into months, scientists might determine that the mirror sky absorbed no energy and produced no gravity, acting instead as a perfect photon reflector that trapped light within the Earth system, making solar power dramatically more efficient as sunlight was reused again and again, reshaping technology, energy systems, and architecture. While night and day slowly lost their old meaning, replaced by a continuous cycle of reflected illumination, and humanity adapted emotionally as well, learning to live beneath a sky that no longer hid consequences or escape, because the stars were no longer visible as distant dreams, but replaced by endless reflections of civilization itself. And over generations, the mirror sky would become normal, a permanent feature of reality, shaping culture, belief systems, and identity, until one truth became impossible to ignore: that when the universe no longer allows a species to look outward, it forces that species to look inward instead. And under a mirrored sky, humanity would finally understand that whatever kind of world it creates below will always be visible above, unchanged, unblinking, and eternal, turning Earth into both the observer and the observed, living forever inside a silent cosmic mirror that asks the same question every single day, not through words or sound, but through reflection alone. What kind of world are you willing to see forever? And as years passed under the mirrored sky, humanity would begin to notice subtle but profound changes in how time itself was perceived. Because without a truly dark night, and without a clear upward view into deep space, the natural rhythm that had guided human civilization for thousands of years would slowly dissolve, replaced by artificial cycles designed around reflection and light management, causing societies to rethink work, rest, and even the concept of days and seasons, while religions and belief systems across the world would reinterpret ancient texts and symbols, some seeing the mirror sky as a sign of judgment, others as a reminder of balance, and many as a test whether humanity could live responsibly when constantly confronted with its own image. And psychologically, this would change identity because people would grow up never knowing a sky that did not watch them back, never experiencing the feeling of smallness beneath infinite stars, instead living in a world where the universe felt intimate, enclosed, and deeply personal. And this would reduce humanity's obsession with conquest and expansion, shifting focus inward towards sustainability, cooperation, and preservation, since any damage done to the planet would no longer feel distant or abstract, but immediately visible above, magnified and unavoidable. And scientifically, the mirror sky would remain one of the greatest mysteries ever encountered, as experiments confirmed that no matter what wavelength of light was directed upward, it returned perfectly unchanged, unaffected by heat, radiation, or time, suggesting that the mirror was not a surface itself, but a boundary in space-time itself, a limit placed on how information could escape the Earth system, leading some physicists to theorize that the planet had entered a closed-loop reality, isolated visually but not physically, while others speculated that the mirror sky was a natural response of the universe to intelligent life, a way of forcing self-awareness upon civilizations before allowing them to progress further. And as technology advanced, humans would learn to harness the reflected energy more efficiently, creating cities that glowed softly rather than blaze with wasteful light, developing architecture that worked with reflection instead of fighting it, and designing transportation systems that relied entirely on precise instruments rather than visual assumptions, while art and entertainment would evolve into immersive experiences built around symmetry, reflection, and perception. And language itself might adapt, developing new words to describe directions that no longer felt absolute, as up and down lost their old meanings beneath a sky that mirrored the ground perfectly. And emotionally, humanity would become quieter, more reflective, not because of fear, but because constant visibility would encourage accountability, reducing reckless behavior over generations as people learned that nothing they built or destroyed could be hidden from the world above. And eventually, the mirror sky would fade from being a subject of fear or wonder and become simply the way the world is, a background presence shaping every decision subtly but powerfully, until future generations could no longer imagine a sky that did not reflect them. And when historians looked back, they would mark the day the sky became a mirror as the moment humanity stopped looking outward for meaning and began finding it within their own actions, realizing that progress was no longer about escaping the planet or reaching distant stars, but about becoming worthy of the world that was permanently reflected above them. Because under a mirrored sky, the universe would offer no distraction, no escape, only a silent reminder that whatever humanity chooses to be will always be visible, always be reflected, and always be returned back unchanged, forever.